So today we are going to look at work as cultivation and work as service. So we have been looking at the definition of work in the first video, and in the second video we looked at God's design or God's plan for work from Genesis 1 and 2. Again, focusing on Genesis 1 and 2, we see an important aspect of God's mandate to humanity. Of course, we said work is not a necessary evil. It's something mandated by God from creation in a perfect world. And one of the word that God uses to command humanity to work is to go and work the ground, till the ground, cultivate the ground. And you can imagine in that context where humanity was placed in the Garden of Eden, where there were animals and plants, fauna and flora, God's mandate is keep on tilling it, keep on working it, keep on cultivating it. And one wonders why. It's because it's almost God is saying, I have given you this land, but if you need something from it, you must work it out. This is part of your dignity as a Christian. It's part of your dignity as humanity. When you work, you get meaningful output from that cultivation. And what also that does, it also brings a new culture. When we work, it brings out a new culture aspect of that work. So think about it, that when people work in different industries in the world, it bears out a cultural thing that comes out of that work. So let me use a very good example. So someone sits down and comes up with a new technological device we call the phone. Now, the phone brings a totally different culture into the world. And that's what we're saying. Work brings out, when we cultivate what God has already given to us, it bears out a cultural aspect in the society. Now, that cultural aspect is not limited to Christians only, because we know there are many people who work in different industries. But what we see is that humanity has that special call that when they cultivate what God has already provided for them, it brings out a new cultural thing in the world. It brings human flourishing, which is very helpful. So we want to think work as a helpful thing, or call for us to cultivate what God has already provided for us, to innovate what God has already provided for us. And that's helpful. So when someone comes up with a phone, we get a phone culture from what he has already created. Then the second bit that is also important in this discussion is the bit about work as service. Now, we mentioned at the beginning that we spend 70 to 80% of our time at work. So just imagine, what's the best way that you can serve other human beings? It is actually realizing that your work matters to that person so much so that you serve them with the best intention. So you don't view your work as a means to an end only, if it's paid work, but also you see it as a service to the rest of humanity and also to God himself. So when we are actually abusing that mandate by not serving people or actually using our work for selfish gains, then we are not seeing the mandate of God to cultivate and bring up a new culture, but also to use that gift of work for us to think about how can we serve every human being in our area, and that's helpful because some of the issues we are having as a human race, whether it's in our country or outside our country, are because humanity has not taken the call to work seriously and actually seen it as a service to other humanity. But actually people are becoming more selfish, and you're going to look at this more when you come to the video on the problems of work. Thank you very much for listening to us.